Hi, I want to carry on a little bit about my claim that I'm a better objectivist than objectivists are, as a skeptic and a subjectivist and a relativist. The issue is really this. Given the beginning of relativity in philosophy, we have a situation in which it seems like we're all in the center of our own universes. It just seems that way because we're at the center of our own experiences. But it also looks like a lot of subjectivity of this sort is incidental. I mean, at the moral level, for example, is it moral to eat a dog or not? That is truly relative. And while I still don't believe in eating dogs, I don't condemn a culture where that's considered okay. That is I've stepped out of my own personal relativism that I still feel. And I've seen that in the larger context, there really isn't a common reason for us to agree, but the disagreement is just incidental. We've decided to allow this kind of stuff, but there is a methodology to deciding which we will decide and which we won't. Basically, the idea is that since we have this theory of an objective world, we could use this objective world as a common reference frame, and we could have an objective truths in all sorts of areas by looking at this objective frame. How you get to this frame is you step back from the incidental frames of an individual and you look for things that are common between them. So ultimately, if one person is thinking it's okay to kill the children of some other tribe that you're at war with, we can step out of that and say, well, you're all humans, and as sharing this reference frame of humans, then it really is going to be wrong to kill another human child, because what looked like different frames of two tribes can be turned into a common frame of the fact that they both are tribes of humans. And the theory is that if you step back enough, you will find the common frames that people do have to agree to. And these common frames are going to be things that are true in their common frames of reference. So this is how we achieve the theories of objectivity, and by looking for these common frames. Okay. If you take this year after century, we have the development of the physical sciences from natural philosophy, from this quest of trying to find the common frames of reference. Which parts of our reality will be common and therefore lead to common truths? And it certainly seemed like physics would do that. And how did physics do that? Well, it identified the measurable quantities, mass and length and time. You can work in the fields and energy however you like, but with these quantities of mass, length, and time that we could measure, we seem to get to something that is common for us all. But in reality, after we did that, and we thought we had an objective, concrete, static, dynamic in that it's moving, but static in that it's knowable universe. But it turns out when you look really closely, the physical quantities are relative as well. If a photon of light is flying through space, that photon cannot be said to be blue or green or red. It depends on the observer. It depends on the observer. To different observers, that light will be a different color. It won't just appear, it'll actually be a different wavelength of light with a different amount of energy. And so even the physical quantities, turns out, are relativistic. So I think we have to accept that. And I think that the superior objectivity is the one that does accept that. So the theory of objectivity, if we stay true to it, leads us back to this idea that what we can call an objective reality, in that it exists, is not really objective in the way we normally think of objective. Meaning it's not full of objects, it's not full of one specific thing that we would need it to be full of, which is a common reference frame that we can compare ourselves to, instead of comparing ourselves to other entities. We could compare ourselves with this objective reality, come up with an answer that would apply. And that isn't going to happen because we all have our own physical frames of reference as well. So when we bring this back to the human level, what we have is reason to understand relativity and try to apply what we know about relativity at all levels of the argument. So at a social level, where there's a lot of what I've called incidental subjectivity, incidental relativism, we want to apply what we have learned about hardcore relativism to this incidental relativism and use it as a way to remain open-minded without giving in to the nihilists that say that nothing can be figured, because things can be figured out in relativity. In relativity, any two entities have a relationship. And so while there is no absolute single frame of reference in the universe for us to compare ourselves to, what we can do is compare ourselves to all the other objects we come in contact with. And each of our relationships is like a string, and all together they make a web. And we can, within that web, find conclusions to reach. We can find practical means to judge our actions and behaviors. And we can get good enough results, and that's all we ever needed, was good enough results. The need for objective results and perfect knowledge, that's just a false need. If you're really a skeptic and a relativist, you won't need those. And one problem that we have is that a lot of times people are relativists because it's shocking, and they've chosen relative to some, and they've chosen relativism sort of to be shocking. So when the objectivists say, hey, if you believe relativity, then you believe in nothing, everything's equal, you can't say with anything with any confidence, a lot of subjectivists are like, yeah, that's right, haha, fuck you, see? And that doesn't really serve me well, because I'm not that kind of objectivist. I'm not saying the sun doesn't come up in the morning. I'm saying the earth spins and, it appears to come up, and that's not the same as saying it doesn't come up at all. It's like, I'm not, just because I've said that a God doesn't pull the sun across the sky doesn't mean I'm saying that the sun doesn't exist. I'm just saying it exists as something different than what you have claimed. And if I say knowledge is not objective, I haven't said knowledge doesn't exist. I've said it is not based on objective principles, but on relativistic ones. And we should expect to rediscover a lot of the things we thought are true, but just in a slightly different sense. I do have good reasons to prohibit murder, but they're just not objective. And the search for a single common reference frame has failed to find one. Furthermore, it's actually succeeded in demonstrating that there isn't going to be one, that there are only relativistic frames of reference. And I really do suggest that you all understand first Galilean relativity. You should all try to understand, what does it mean that every object is at rest with respect to the universe, or more accurately, doesn't even have a velocity with respect to the universe and only has velocities with respect to other objects. That's strange. It's comprehensible. We all kind of understand this on a somewhat intuitive level at some point, because we've been in cars where all the people around us are at rest with us, and it seems like the other car is moving. We know that in the other car it seems like we are moving. So we have an intuitive grasp on Galilean relativity. We need to get a philosophical grasp on what it might mean to us that even something as straightforward as velocity is entirely relative. That has some metaphorical impacts that we can apply on relativity in all cases. And that's what I suggest we do. And that's what I suggest that true adherence to our theory of objectivity requires us to do. So there you go, and cheers.